You want to know what's really happening with American motorcycle dealerships right now? They're not just struggling, they're collapsing. And here's the part that's going to make some people angry. They absolutely earned it. I know that sounds harsh. I know some of you are already typing angry comments. But before you click away, let me show you exactly why American motorcycle dealerships, Harley, Indian, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, all of them, are facing a reckoning that's been decades in the making. And why the riding community that should be their lifeline is standing back, arms crossed, watching it happen. Because this isn't about bad luck. This isn't about economic downturns or kids these days don't ride. This is about 30 years of predatory behavior, treating customers like walking ATMs, and an arrogance so thick that even the most loyal riders finally said, enough. I'm Jimmy, and today we're breaking down the American motorcycle dealer empire, how they abuse the most passionate customer base in the world, and why their downfall is a case study in what happens when you mistake a captive market for customer loyalty. And look, I'm not celebrating people losing their businesses, but I'm saying that when you spend 3 decades treating customers like garbage, the consequences are going to be brutal. Let's get into it. First, you need to understand what the 1990s through the early 2000s were like for American motorcycle dealerships. Because this wasn't just a good market, this was a dealer's paradise, where they could do whatever they wanted, and customers had zero leverage. Think about it. If you wanted a new Harley Davidson, you went to a Harley dealer. That's it. No internet price shopping, no online reviews, no way to know if the dealer in the next town over was offering a better deal. You walked into your local dealer and you paid whatever they told you to pay, because what other option did you have? Drive 300 miles to the next dealer? Good luck. And the dealers knew it. They had a captive market and they absolutely abused it. Walk into a Harley dealer in 2005 during the boom years and you weren't a customer. You were an interruption to their day. Sales guys standing around talking about their weekend while you browsed for 20 minutes. Nobody said hello. Nobody offered to help. But the second a 65-year-old guy with a Rolex and a potbelly walked in, suddenly 3 sales guys materialized out of thin air. Hey brother, welcome. Let me show you what we just got in. Age discrimination. Appearance discrimination. If you didn't look like you had money, you were invisible. And if you were a woman, forget about it. I've heard the stories. Does your husband know you're here? This is a lot of bike for a girl. Maybe you'd be more comfortable on a Sportster, sweetheart. And the boomers in the audience right now are nodding because they remember this. You remember walking into dealerships in the 80s and 90s and being treated like royalty because you had the demographic they wanted. Gray hair? Check. Disposable income? Check. Willing to drop 40 grand on a motorcycle you'd ride twice a year? Check, check, check. You were the golden customer. Meanwhile, your kids walked into the same dealership looking at starter bikes and got treated like they were wasting everyone's time. And now you're wondering why they bought Ninjas and CBRs instead of Harleys. Well, that's why. But it gets worse, because it wasn't just the sales floor. The service departments were a whole different level of crime. Let me paint you a picture of what dealing with an American motorcycle dealership service department was actually like. And I don't care if it's Harley, Indian, Honda, Triumph, BMW, all of them pulled this garbage. You call to schedule service. We can get you in 3 weeks from now for an oil change, maybe. 3 weeks for 20 minutes of work. Meanwhile, your bike needs an oil change now and you're wondering if you should just learn to do it yourself. Spoiler alert, you should have. You finally get your appointment. You drop the bike off at 8 a.m. like they told you. They say it'll be ready by end of day. 5 o'clock comes. No call. You call them. Oh yeah, we didn't get to it. Maybe tomorrow. Your bike sits in their lot for 3 days for an oil change. An oil change that takes longer to schedule than it does to perform. When you finally pick it up, the bill is $340. So for an oil change, You look at the invoice. Well, we noticed your air filter looked a little dirty, so we replaced it. And we did a full safety inspection, that's $85, and there's a shop fee and documentation and hazmat disposal and a fee for the fee. You didn't authorize any of that work. Well, we can't let a bike leave here unsafe, so you pay it because what choice do you have? Your bike is being held hostage. And here's my favorite part. That air filter they noticed was dirty. You replaced it 2,000 miles ago. You know it's clean. They know you know it's clean. They don't care. They're charging you anyway. This happened at Harley dealers, Indian dealers, Honda dealers, BMW dealers charging you $450 for an oil change and acting like they're doing you a favor. The brand didn't matter. The scam was universal. Now, boomers, I know some of you are thinking, well, I never had a problem at my dealer. That's because you're 68 years old, you showed up in a Corvette, and you paid whatever they charged without asking questions. You were their favorite customer. They loved you. They treated you great. But your son, who showed up on a 15-year-old Ninja, wearing a t-shirt, he got the 3-week wait and the $340 oil change. Now let's talk about the parts departments, because this is where the real theft happened. You need a part, let's say a mirror. You look it up online, $127. You walk into the dealer, $389. Same part number, identical. Yeah, but ours is genuine OEM. It's the same part. The same manufacturer makes both. You point this out. The parts guy looks at you like you just insulted his entire family. Well, you can order it online if you want to wait 2 weeks and hope it's not counterfeit. Hope it's not counterfeit? It's from the manufacturer's website. It's coming from the same warehouse yours came from, but you need the part today. So you pay $389 for a mirror that costs $127 online. And the parts guy acts like he's doing you a favor by selling it to you. This happened at every brand. Harley dealers charging 400% markup on parts, Indian dealers doing the same thing. Honda dealers, Kawasaki dealers, all of them. They had a monopoly on OEM parts at the local level, and they used it to rob people blind. And the thing is, they could have charged fair prices and still made money. A 30% markup? Reasonable. Covers overhead, pays employees, makes profit. But 300%? That's just greed. That's looking at a customer and thinking, how much can I take this person for before they walk out? The answer, it turns out, was a lot, until the internet made it impossible to hide pricing anymore. And then we get to the financing office. Oh, the financing office, where the real crime happened, where a $15,000 motorcycle turned into a $30,000 6-year nightmare. You walk in ready to buy. You've done your research. You know what you want. You know what you should pay. The sales guy gives you a price. Sounds reasonable? You're ready to sign. Great. Let's get you over to finance to finish the paperwork. You walk into the financing office, you sit down, the finance manager pulls out a binder, and for the next 90 minutes you are subjected to the most aggressive sales pitch you've ever experienced in your life. So before we finish, let me tell you about our protection packages. Here it comes. We've got the premium extended warranty, covers everything for 7 years, only $2,400, and we can roll it right into your financing. You don't want an extended warranty. No thanks, I'm good. Okay, but what about theft protection? Motorcycles get stolen all the time. This will cover you up to the full value, only $1,800. You have insurance. No, I'm covered. All right, what about our maintenance package? Prepaid oil changes and service for 3 years, $3,200. You can do your own oil changes. I'll pass. Gap insurance, tire and wheel protection, paint protection, windshield coverage. No, 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 No. Well, I gotta be honest with you. If you're not taking any of our protection packages, I don't know if I can get you approved for financing. Wait, what? You have a 750 credit score and 30% down. What do you mean you can't get me approved? The lender wants to see that you're protecting your investment. If you're not willing to protect the bike, they're not willing to take the risk. This is a lie, a complete, provable lie. But the finance manager says it with a straight face because this is how they make their real money. The bike sale, that's just the entry point. The financing, the add-ons, that's where they make $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in pure profit. And if you cave and buy even one of these packages, congratulations, you just paid $1,800 for theft protection that cost the dealership $200. You paid $2,400 for an extended warranty that has so many exclusions, it'll never actually cover anything. You financed a helmet and jacket at 9% interest over 5 years. This happened at every brand. Harley dealers doing it, Indian dealers, even the Japanese brands, Honda dealers pushing extended warranties on bikes that'll run for 100,000 miles without issue, Kawasaki dealers selling gap insurance on bikes that hold their value better than cars. Everyone was in on the scam. But wait, there's more. Because during the shortage years, dealers invented a whole new scam, mandatory accessories. You want this bike? Great. It comes with a mandatory accessory package. Saddlebags, windshield, highway pegs, heated grips, security system, chrome package. Total cost, $6,500. But I don't want any of that stuff. It's mandatory, non-negotiable. If you want the bike, you buy the package. Can I at least pick which accessories? Nope, package deal. Take it or leave it. And here's the beautiful part. That $6,500 accessory package, it cost the dealer maybe $2,000. They're making $3,500 in pure profit by forcing you to buy stuff you explicitly said you don't want. And if you walked out, no problem. There were 50 people behind you who would pay it. The market was hot. Demand was insane. Dealers could get away with anything. Harley dealers were the worst at this, but Indian dealers did it too. Even Honda dealers started pulling this during COVID. You want a new Goldwing? Cool. It comes with a mandatory $10,000 touring package. You want a Rebel 500? Here's a mandatory accessory package that costs more than the bike. And boomers, I know you're sitting there thinking, well, I paid it and I was happy. Yeah, because you could afford it. You're retired. You've got pension money and a paid-off house. Dropping an extra $6,000 on accessories you didn't want was annoying but manageable. But your 30-year-old grandson who saved for 2 years to buy his first bike? That mandatory accessory package just priced him out of the market entirely. So he bought a used bike from a private seller instead, and the dealer lost a customer for life. And this brings us to the crisis that's destroying dealerships right now. The demographic time bomb that every dealer saw coming and did absolutely nothing to prevent. American motorcycle dealerships built their entire business model on one customer, the baby boomer. Specifically the affluent baby boomer with disposable income who grew up worshiping Harleys and always dreamed of owning one. That customer is now in their late 60s, 70s, even 80s, and they're aging out of motorcycling. They're selling their bikes, they're downsizing, they're moving to retirement communities where they can't store a motorcycle. Some of them physically can't ride anymore. And dealerships are watching their core customer base disappear in real time. Now, a smart business would have seen this coming 20 years ago and started aggressively courting younger riders, building relationships, offering fair prices, creating a welcoming environment, making younger generations feel valued instead of tolerated. But American motorcycle dealers didn't do that. They looked at millennials and Gen Z and saw broke kids who couldn't afford their bikes anyway. They looked at sport bike riders and saw a different culture that wasn't real motorcycling. They looked at women riders and saw, well, we already covered that. So they focused on the boomers, kept squeezing them for every dollar, kept selling them $30,000 baggers and $40,000 touring bikes, kept treating everyone else like an inconvenience. And now the boomers are leaving, and there's nobody behind them. Gen X riders, they got burned by dealers in the 90s and the 2000s. They bought used bikes and learned to work on them themselves specifically to avoid dealerships. Millennials, they watched their parents get gouged and said, no thanks, I'll buy a sport bike. Gen Z, they grew up with the internet. They can see exactly what a bike should cost. They're not paying dealer markups. So American motorcycle dealerships are sitting here with enormous showrooms designed for a customer base that's disappearing, and they have zero relationship with the generations that should be replacing them. And whose fault is that? Not the customers, the dealers. They had 30 years to build those relationships, and they chose short-term profit over long-term sustainability. But here's what really killed the dealer stranglehold: the internet. In 1995, if you wanted to know what a fair price for a motorcycle was, you had no way to find out. You could visit 3 dealers and get 3 different prices, and you still wouldn't know if you were getting a good deal. Dealers controlled all the information, and they used that control to maximize profit. Then the internet showed up and destroyed that monopoly overnight. Suddenly you could look up MSRP. You could see what other people paid. You could compare prices across dealerships without leaving your house. You could read reviews from actual customers instead of trusting the sales guy's pitch. You could order parts online for a fraction of dealer prices. The information advantage that dealers had relied on for decades evaporated, and instead of adapting, most dealers doubled down. They kept charging the same markups, hoping customers wouldn't notice. They kept adding the same fees, assuming people wouldn't comparison shop. They kept providing the same terrible service, thinking they were still the only option. Except they weren't the only option anymore. Customers could buy used bikes from private sellers. They could order parts online. They could watch YouTube videos and learn to do their own maintenance. They could join online forums and get advice from experienced riders instead of sales guys on commission. The internet gave customers leverage, and dealers never adjusted to that reality. And then COVID hit, and for about 18 months it looked like dealers were going to get away with all of it. Demand went insane, supply disappeared. Suddenly dealers had all the power again. They jacked up prices. They added market adjustments. They brought back mandatory accessory packages. They were selling bikes $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over MSRP and laughing all the way to the bank. See? We told you people would pay whatever we charge. Except that wasn't demand. That was a temporary market distortion caused by a global pandemic and supply chain collapse. It was always going to correct. Any competent business person could see that. But dealers acted like the boom times would last forever. They stocked up on expensive inventory. They expanded showrooms. They hired more staff. They committed to overhead that only made sense if they were selling 500 bikes a year at inflated prices. And then the correction came. Supply came back. Demand normalized. Interest rates spiked from 3% to 11%, killing financing approvals. Customers who got burned during COVID said never again and walked away. And suddenly dealers were sitting on 92,000 unsold motorcycles, paying 6 figures annually in floor plan interest on inventory they couldn't move, watching wholesale prices collapse at auction, bleeding money every single month. And you know what the response from customers was? Good. You earned this. And this is where we get to the beautiful part. The part where karma shows up with a baseball bat. Remember those dealers who charged $20,000 over MSRP during COVID? Remember the mandatory accessories? Remember the $340 oil changes? Remember the condescension and the discrimination and the predatory financing? Now those same dealers are desperate. Full-page newspaper ads, radio commercials, billboards everywhere. Emergency sale. Everything must go. We need to move this inventory. What can we do to earn your business today? The same sales managers who acted like they were doing you a favor by selling you a motorcycle are now cold calling old customers begging them to come look at bikes. The same service departments that made you wait 3 weeks for an oil change are now calling. We noticed you haven't been in for service. Can we get you scheduled? We have openings all week. The same finance guys who pushed every add-on package known to man are now offering 0% financing and waiving doc fees. And the response from customers? Silence. Or laughter. people remember. They remember being treated like garbage. They remember the price gouging. They remember the arrogance. They remember walking into dealerships and being ignored unless they looked wealthy enough. So when these dealers come begging now, the response is, well, where was this energy when I needed a simple oil change and you made me wait a month? Where was this pricing when you had me over a barrel? Where was this respect when I was trying to give you my business? I've talked to writers all over the country who are watching their local dealers struggle, and their reaction is universal. Good. They earned this. That's how bad the relationship got. Dealerships burned so much goodwill, abused so many customers, and showed so much arrogance that now, when they actually need community support, there's none left to give. And the consequences are real. Over 400 American motorcycle dealerships closed permanently in 2025. Not downsize, not consolidated. Closed, doors locked. Inventory liquidated, employees laid off, gone. I drive past dealerships all the time that are empty now. Harley dealers that used to have 50 bikes on the floor, now dark. Indian dealers that used to be packed on weekends, now for lease signs in the window. Even Honda and Yamaha dealers shutting down their motorcycle divisions and focusing only on ATVs and side-by-sides because those still sell. And you know what? A lot of these closures are in areas with huge riding populations, cities where thousands of people own motorcycles, places where you'd think a dealership should thrive. But the riders in those communities watched those dealers treat people like garbage for decades. And when the dealers needed support, the riders said, nope. There's a Harley dealer near me that's been there for 40 years, family owned, multiple generations, and it's about to close. Why? Because they spent 40 years treating customers terribly. They had a captive market and they abused it. They alienated younger riders. They price gouged loyal customers. They provided terrible service. And now, when they actually need people to shop there, the community has collectively decided to let them fail. That's not bad luck. That's not the economy. That's consequences. Here's the thing that drives me crazy. This was all avoidable. Imagine an alternate timeline where American motorcycle dealerships weren't greedy, where they charged fair prices, where they treated all customers with respect regardless of age or appearance or gender, where they built relationships instead of extracting maximum profit. That timeline looks pretty good right now. Those dealers would have loyal customers who'd been coming back for decades. They'd have younger riders who grew up shopping there and trusted them. They'd have women riders who felt welcome and valued. They'd have a diverse customer base that wasn't aging out all at once. When the market corrected, those dealers would have been fine. Maybe revenue dips a little. Maybe margins get tighter. But they'd survive because they built goodwill. They built community. They built trust. Instead, we got the timeline where dealers squeezed every dollar out of every transaction, burned every bridge, and are now shocked that nobody wants to help them.